The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, review.
Welcome, everybody, to Wrestling to the Max's Raw review for March 13th, 2017. And we are here via the W2M Network and, of course, W2Mnet.com. That's right. W2Mnet.com is a website you go to find all our great content, and as well, go check out some other great stuff that website has to offer. Also, I mentioned the W2M Network. That's the place you go and subscribe if you want to get everything that we have, plus everything the website has when it comes to podcasts. But hey, if you just want to hit us up and just get Wrestling to the Max gear and all the stuff that we have to offer, hey, just hit us up there and go subscribe. Also, do us a favor, go rate and review if you're using iTunes. That always just gives us a bump, and it kind of helps us, spread the word a little bit. Of course, I'm here. I'm Mr. Gary Vaughan, and with me is Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And not with us is Shawn Garmer, but that's okay. All of us do different things, and sometimes we have to take a show off, so Shawn won't be with us tonight for Raw, but be looking for him for that SmackDown Live review. But yeah, Paul, let's do this thing. We got some Monday Night Raw to get into.
Oh, how I envy Shawn for not having to talk about this show.
Maybe that's why he skipped out. Maybe he's just like, I'll just let them do it.
Yeah. Maybe he is much smarter than either of us put together because, yeah, he's not here to have to talk about this. They open Raw. They highlight Fastlane and Raw in case you've forgotten about just how terribly boring the last couple of weeks have been. And then they open. Brock Lesnar comes out with Mr. Paul Heyman in tow. They cut a promo. Heyman is pretty much euphoric and almost in ecstasy over Brock Lesnar finally F5ing Goldberg and getting a one-up on him. And sort of keeps talking about how the issue with everything that's been with Goldberg is that Goldberg has just been owning Brock. And Brock's finally been able to turn the page, turn the corner, and that is the beginning of Goldberg's downfall that will take us all the way to WrestleMania, where Brock will challenge Goldberg for the Universal Championship. Yeah, I like Heyman's energy here. I'm glad that somebody in that building at least gives a shit about this feud, because I don't, Gary.
Yeah. It's funny because this is supposed to be one of the marquee feuds, right, Paul? This is like the match that they're hoping that really gets those casual fans geared in on WrestleMania. Because a lot of the old fans from back in the day, they knew Brock Lesnar, they knew Bill Goldberg because he was around even during the Attitude Era, even though he wasn't a part of the Attitude Era, he was on the other rival company, but they still knew who he was. So this is to get the old fans. This is to get some of the people that just know those big names. And, of course, maybe some of the UFC fans as well. But yet, at the same point, this feud is not as strong as I want it to be either. I look at it and I say, okay, you can do 1, 2, and 3, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 you can't do because these guys are not geared towards those things that we can do with normal wrestlers. Both these guys are big powerhouses. Both of these guys offer an attitude of, I'm big and bad, but just don't expose me, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're kind of limited on some of the things they can do. Not only that, let's be honest, Paul, this is a dangerous time for WWE when it comes to both guys because these guys, when they are facing off against other competitors, are supposed to be like the deity, if you want to say that. They're supposed to be the toughest guys to beat. Now you got the two guys that you don't want to look bad going against each other. So I think that leaves us to a lot of boredom. That leads us to this. Trust me, I love Paul Heyman, Paul. But you got to tell me what you think about this. Paul Heyman, he's a great guy. But right now, it's not there. Even for Paul Heyman, it's not there to entertain me. I don't know.
He's trying to sell people on a feud that is largely based on what you just said, and I think that's drawing in casuals. I mean, Goldberg's still, even post WCW, he's been in movies, he's gone on to do television shows, he's done a bunch of other things in mainstream media that has kept his name relatively popular, even amongst those outside wrestling. And of course, Brock Lesnar was at one time the biggest draw in UFC and MMA. Is pretty much a gateway to instant credibility and huge name value and tons of other things, right? So, for me, I mean, there's almost a little vanity in this. I think even for WWE's sake of them trying to rehash maybe a black eye from WrestleMania 20 by having these guys rematch here once again. But I mean, you're right. Brock Lesnar is what he is. Goldberg is what he is at this point. Neither of them, I think, are really... I don't want to say they're not invested, because Goldberg seems much more invested this go-around. I think Brock Lesnar is invested as his bank account stays swollen with numbers. So, I mean, they're there to do this. They're there to... I mean, I really hope this doesn't main event the WrestleMania, but it probably will. But yeah. I don't care. I don't think a lot of people in that building really cared. And the Joe Louis Arena here for the last Raw is a WWE show taking place in this arena, that they were pretty good the whole night. And they were into certain parts, but overall, I think this largely fell flat for them too.
Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of got what we were getting. But, when you're there live in the audience, and not only that, this is the last hurrah for WWE being in that, arena, that pumps them up already. So that helped WWE. Otherwise, this crowd may have been quiet, because I think that, the nostalgia part, the part of, this is the last historical event when it comes to WWE that are going to have here in the arena. I was at the last WWE show at, blah, blah, blah. So I think that helped. You're right, though. I mean, even like this, like what we're talking about here with Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, it was fine, but Paul Heyman didn't really blow me away with that promo. It was nothing that I hadn't heard before. It was just kind of there. And you didn't have Goldberg showing up. I think that affected this, too. And that's what has my fears going forward from here. How much interaction is Brock Lesnar and Goldberg going to have going forward? I have a gut feeling, unless for some reason they decide to change their mind, that we're not going to see these two together in a ring until the Raw before WrestleMania. And that leads to a lot of, silly, boring kind of things. I don't know.
I'm largely okay with that. They're struggling, I think, to build out the rest of the Raw side of this card right now, too. So, I mean, the less you have to deal with as far as what this is going to be, which this is a very one-dimensional feud, right? It's two guys. Brock is looking to get that big win back. It's very ho-hum. Here it is. Like, it's not very deep, right? It's not Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho here. It's not Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton. It's not Seth Rollins, Triple H, right? It's not stuff that has a whole lot of build behind it, history-wise. It's just it's a very flat feud, and I think they know that. I think they knew that's what this is. It's a big marquee, big match fight feel is what they're going for. The problem is, it's already been done once before, and it's been done once before that long a time ago, and there's just I don't think there's a lot of investment left for people to have in this.
Yeah. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all in that. It's just that I think that the problem with it is just that. That's all you have to hang your hat on. Is it's a big marquee match. They're going for that big fight feel, but yet at the same time, I think the fact that both of these guys really are not going to be able to interact a whole lot, and the fact that there is not that big history behind them. It just, for me, is going to be flat all the way up until we get there. Unless, for some reason, somehow they surprise me and they do put something in this story that, really bumps up the excitement, And that would involve some personal things. And I don't know what that could be, but maybe that could involve even Goldberg's son being involved in this. I don't know. But that could be something that would excite you to at least say, oh, my God, I can't believe Paul Heyman said that to the kid, or Brock Lesnar threatened his kid or his wife, threatened, I'm going to get your wife, blah, blah, blah. Anything like that could definitely bump this up, but I don't think they're going to go that far. I don't. So we'll see. Well, hands up, I have no idea.
Yeah, we got 2 more Raws left. We'll hope for the best. I wouldn't hold my breath out there,
Yeah.
Let's move on to the big overarching story for this entire episode of Raw, and one that frankly I could have given 2 shits about until the very end, when they finally worked it into something that was actually going on the main roster here. Mick Foley is hanging out backstage. Stephanie shows up and is trying to sort of make peace with Foley and be like, look, I understand I've said some mean things, I've done all these things, but look, it's WrestleMania season, and it's not personal, it's just business, citing the old Vince thing here, and basically saying that she's going to try to take a different tact with him, and is going to try to mentor and be more supportive of him, but she needs him to fire somebody to prove that he is this business guy, he's not somebody who's thinking with his heart first, and all these other things. And throughout the evening, Mick Foley excuses himself from the room. He needs to get some air and sort of walk it off, which, for a guy with a hip replacement, necessary. I don't know if that's the best idea, but here we are. And he runs into a couple people. He makes some matches in the meantime. Stephanie, earlier on, of course, also tries to get him to fire Sami Zayn, to which he says that's not going to happen. Bunch of other things. Eventually, that leads us to our big ending segment for the evening, where Mick Foley comes out, and we have the big moment of Stephanie saying, all right, who are you going to fire, Mick? And Mick looks at her and goes, I looked up and down the roster, and I just couldn't find anybody, but then suddenly one name leaped out at me as I was about to come through the curtain, and on my way down here, I thought long and hard about it, and it seemed like the right move, and the person I'm going to fire, Stephanie, is you. And Stephanie laughs it off as a joke, saying, are you serious? I'm your boss. You can't do this to me. If you want to see my dark side, you're going to see my dark side. And her dark side is Motorhead, and Triple H comes out, which felt like the biggest sidestep, because Stephanie's supposed to be this big badass lady, and we don't really get any of that here, because it's time for the Triple H show, who comes down. And I will say this. His interaction with Foley here I thought was absolutely wonderful. Triple H got to be his anti-smart mark guy and sort of run us down, as well as Foley, and cut him deep and go for the kids, while Mick got to be all fire and piss and vinegar for finally standing up for himself. And as Triple H sort of brings up the kids and tells Mick to leave and apologize the next day and all these other things and sort of suck it up, he breaks out Mr. Sacco and hits Foley with the mandible claw. He takes a low blow from Stephanie. And then out comes Seth Rollins. The crowd pops huge. He's got the crutch with him, but by the time he makes it to the end of the ramp, he makes it clear it's all a ruse. He doesn't need it. He tosses it to the side. He leaps into the ring. Him and Triple H have a big old brawl. Rollins comes out on top for a little bit. Triple H ends up grabbing the crutch and takes advantage by attacking the knee and gets to stand tall at the end of the day. I wasn't a fan of Stephanie and Mick being the focus of the show. They did an okay job of shunting it over to the Triple H Rollins stuff here at the end, but we still wasted a good, 4 or 5 segments on all this, so I feel like we're focusing on the wrong things this close to Mania, but the last part was really good.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised the way that they kind of sped this up, or maybe it's not sped up, I don't know, but this feels like it could be a conclusion for the Mick Foley as GM situation. I really don't know if we're going to see him past this after what we saw tonight. This really went from the focus of Mick Foley and Stephanie to Triple H and Seth Rollins again. Which is fine, actually. That's a better situation because you can actually do something with those two. Right. Compared to, there's no payoff with Stephanie, ever! Mm-hmm. And when they finally do get her in the ring, she makes a regular superstar look like a chump. So, that sounds McMahonish, but that's okay. Okay, so let's focus on what we got here, though. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Stephanie and Mick have done this week in and week out. So they had a lot of segments here to get you to that end. And I think the reasoning and thought process behind it is to get you to watch the third hour. Oh, man, who is he going to fire? You know, what's going to happen? I think that was really geared to get somebody who's flipping channels. Oh, wow, they're going to do something like that tonight? Oh, maybe I'll stick around. So outside of that, they wasted a lot of time. You're right. That was a lot of time that really you could have used for something else, or, man, had longer matches, because there were so many short matches. There were a lot of things in this show that I'm just going to say this now. This felt like a clip show to me. This felt like I was watching this on YouTube, and they go, oh, if you want to see this feud, here's a minute and a half. Oh, there's everything. Let's get to the next minute and a half. Oh, so I think that was a big problem, and I think this is a situation where they were kind of using this as filler to get to that main point. But Triple H did excellent. I think even Mick Foley did a good job. I think all the way around, that felt like a very important end segment, right? To me, that felt good. I felt like, man, there's something that you can actually take away from this show when it matters. And surprisingly enough, it has nothing to do with Roman Reigns' music at the end of the show. Although I heard after the show, when Triple H walked out, they just played Roman Reigns' music as people walked out of the arena. So, just so they could end it classy, you know. So, but I'm kidding. I have no idea. I wasn't there. But, you know, I think that Triple H, you mentioned Triple H and getting back to what he does best, and that's kind of run down, you know, the smart fans and do his thing. I think that felt very good. I think that now we have more of a reason to hate Triple H. Before this, Paul, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, Triple H is, he's kind of a bad guy, and of course he's putting down Seth Rollins. And it was kind of hard for me to invest a lot in it because I halfway care about Seth Rollins being angry or happy. I just, honestly, I'm about halfway invested in Seth Rollins alone, probably as much as I am in Triple H. But this, on this night, gave me a reason to be like, yeah, Triple H is a freaking jerk, man. Look what he's doing. He's running down Mick Foley, making fun of him, running down everybody else. So I think they did a great job of painting the picture of a heel here. And this heel is going to come into WrestleMania, and we're all going to want to watch him lose. We finally got to that point, and we're like, 3 weeks away from WrestleMania? We finally got to that point after however long this thing has been going. For me personally, at least, I don't know, maybe people out there really love this feud, but Paul, I mean, I look at this as now I care. Now I want to see Seth Rollins beat him up. Now I have a reason to just get behind this. So overall, you know, it is what it is. I'm excited, and I actually like this main part. It's a lot of hobbob just to get to this, and that's okay, I guess. The payoff was very good.
Yes, I think they started cooking with gas as far as Seth and Triple H went whenever Seth sort of invaded the NXT TakeOver special back in February. And that was all well and good. Just because, you know, you finally got to see a brash Seth Rollins sort of step up and sort of start running Triple H down a little bit more than what we had been, and that's because Triple H hadn't been in the spotlight for a long time, and now you have a whole lot of other things going on with Triple H, where it seems like he's trying to almost reforge the authority in a much stronger light with Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, and obviously Stephanie running the show over here, and all these other things that you got going on. And I mean, this segment, I think you nailed it on. This felt like a big deal. That crowd reaction when Seth's music hit was nuts. And it's a shame it didn't last longer, but I think whenever they saw him come out on the crutch, they didn't really know what to think until they tossed it aside. So, I like I said, I think this is a good piece of business once you get to something that's actually going to matter in 2 weeks. I mean, for all we know, Mick Foley could be there the next week, and we're still waiting to officially write him off with the big you're fired thing and whatnot. But I think overall, I don't know if all the dilly-dallying around to the end was really worth it, but that last 5 minutes of the show was quite good.
Yeah, you're right. And I'll say one last thing. You may have Mick Foley do just what you said, may come back and really may not even be GM. They may fire him next week. Maybe they do the official firing, or they don't. Maybe they make him suffer. Say, oh no, you're not fired, but you're going to suffer. Or they fire him. He could be in Seth Rollins' corner.
Right.
Now that you have Stephanie, he's probably going to be in Triple H's corner now. Mm-hmm. You may have Mick Foley, kind of there to make sure things are even between Triple H and Seth Rollins, that WrestleMania match. So I don't know that's going to happen. I'm just throwing that out there. And the last thing I want to say, and I'm kind of curious what you have to say about this, Paul. Now, I don't know if we talked about this a whole lot, but I look at Triple H, and for the most part, like I said, I've really kind of, he had to be painted as a heel for me to really care, because right now I've been a fan of Triple H because of everything he does with NXT. Mm-hmm. And for fans like us who do watch NXT, who are invested in those young superstars coming to the main roster, doing everything they're doing, it's hard not to like Triple H. It really is, because he's the one smiling and taking pictures with their champions, doing all those things that we want to see. And then when he comes to Raw, he's a freaking jerk, but you still kind of like him because of everything he does in NXT. So I think from our perspective, it's a little harder to hate him. But I think they did a good job of making us want to hate him tonight compared to what we would have been in the past.
I mean, the way he cut his promo and sort of attack, and Mick, despite I think his relatively shaky run as GM here, is still the same lovable guy that everybody fell in love with in the late 90s, early to mid 2000s. The crazy bump machine is willing to go out there and really do whatever it takes to win you over, and he's got all this passion and everything like that, and it still comes across very well here. And for Triple H to bust out the anti-smart promo here, it was a really smart touch too. And I mean, you could almost I almost felt like I was back in the late 90s with how they were going back and forth there, just because they had such a great chemistry back then too, and I don't think that's ever gone away. And you look at Triple H, and you're right, I think to some degree. I mean, he's the guy who comes out before the big NXT events and does the hype job for you to get ready and everything. And he's doing all these other things, and like you said, we know what he's doing as far as behind the scenes go. And the few times you do see him on camera in NXT, it's to hype you up, it's to get you ready, and everybody likes that guy. I mean, he does a good job of it too, and all these other things. But I think really at the end of the day, what you needed to accomplish here with Triple H is exactly what they did. And I don't know if I have such a terrible time of distinguishing him between NXT and Raw. NXT already feels so very different, but I think there might be a lot of people out there who could have been confused or just didn't really know how to feel mostly about, because like you said, Triple H is, and since he's brought up this quote unquote creator thing that he's trying to be now, I mean, it's hard not to get behind a guy who's pushing all the people who people have been behind on the independent circuit or just in NXT or anywhere else they've been. This is the guy that's going to bat for all your favorite people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's this. It's just that hard time, to distinguish between if I like this guy or not, and all that, because it's just what that is that he goes to bat for your people that you're wanting to see. In fact, it's not even just the NXT. It's when you're listening to people talk about the Hall of Fame and the fact that Triple H personally has basically, healed a lot of old wounds and brought a bunch of Hall of Famers and legends back to this company. It's just like, man, how could I hate a guy that's, he's got Bruno Sammartino back on board. He's brought in guys like even the Ultimate Warrior, who was never going to step foot back in a WWE ring. Mm-hmm. Guys like that. So, it's that whole hodgepodge. We know too much, I think, sometimes that affects our judgment. But in this, I think, when it comes to this whole end segment here, like I said, it paints that picture of a heel that I want him to lose. And you said the chemistry between Mick Foley and Triple H. You better bet that was good chemistry. I could even see it. Mick Foley, that was probably some of the best emotion I've seen him have on this, Raw from, I think, most of his time here. Mm-hmm. Him yanking his teeth out and things like that, that shows you right there. I think he, in his mind, went back to the late 90s. I really, really do.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it better myself. I mean, the teeth and it is all good stuff there. Let's move on though. Let's talk about the other guy who you mentioned during that. That's Roman Reigns. Jinder shows up during one of Mick Foley's walks and is very concerned about the person being fired, and he says he's only been doing so bad because Rusev has been holding him back, and Mick says, well, you know what? You're all uppity and in my face, and I'm already going through a tough decision over here, so tonight you're going to face Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns goes out there, beats him in about 3 minutes. I'm really surprised Mahal got any offense at all, so because Roman Reigns obviously has The Undertaker, which that match has officially been made now. So he finishes off Jinder after getting a distraction from The Undertaker's gong hitting and everything, and Reigns post-match calls out The Undertaker. And this brings out Shawn Michaels, who is pretty much the authority on wrestling The Undertaker at WrestleMania these days, and says, look, dude, you're underestimating him, you're distracted, you're all these things, you're not in the right place to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Trust me, I know, bada bada bada. And Reigns is like, hey man, it's good to see you, but I didn't call you out. I'm here to face The Undertaker, and you're saying I'm not here. Nobody knows. He doesn't know what it's like to be in the ring with me. People should be afraid of what I can do, of what I'm going to do to him. And, he's the guy that retired you. Why am I really trying to... why should I take your advice and do all these other things that you're saying when I'm the one that's planning on retiring The Undertaker? Realistically, I thought this was really good as far as what Roman Reigns is going to deliver to you in this feud. I'm not saying it sold me on the match or anything, even though I do think it's going to be a lot better than people give it credit for, or are probably giving it credit for now. But I thought that this was overall pretty solid. Reigns working heel. Like, if this is more of what we're going to get from Reigns this year, especially if there's a heel turn in his future, we might be in some pretty solid hands here, because this I thought this was good, of being the smug guy who really feels like he has everything under control.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, this is the Roman Reigns we kind of wanted to see. Mm-hmm. At least from all of us fans who watch this show week in and week out and say, give us what we want. And that's Reigns to be a jerk. We want him to be this just mean, smug, guy that comes out and, threatens everyone and says, I'm better than all of you. You guys get mad at me and say they handpicked me. You better bet they handpicked me, because I'm better than everyone here. Why wouldn't they handpick me? Everybody in this arena sucks. I'm beautiful. I'm this guy that, all of everybody's wives and, girlfriends want to be with. Things like that could really, it's kind of cheap. That's, cheap heat, I know. But that's stuff that, we want to see from this guy, because the initial paint that has been slapped on him has been John Cena. Oh, I'm just the next coming of John Cena. If you want to say it, I can be the resurrection of John Cena, because I'm that new guy. And no one wanted to see that. No one still wants to see that. So I'm loving seeing this gray area. Right now it's in that gray area of, well, I was kind of giving you guys some props because I love HBK. You're so great to be here. And then he's like, but, you don't know anything, HBK. You're not me. I'm better than you. I'm going to beat Undertaker. So now he's, loving this legend, and then making fun of the legend in a way by saying, you've never beat the Undertaker, but I will. So I appreciate that. I think overall they gave us a good little promo here. It didn't have to be real long. It wasn't real long. It's also a nice touch to have a guy like HBK being a part of this, because he did have some major matches against the Undertaker. Never won one, but had some big matches at WrestleMania. Not only that, he is Mr. WrestleMania, like he pointed out. So this is the time he needs to be around. Overall, it was good. It really was. I mean, outside of this, you get Jinder Mahal knocked out with a one Superman punch, if I'm not wrong, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, my God, it takes usually like 15 on anybody else, but Jinder takes one, he's dead. So I think that was, what it was. We knew that coming out, right? I mean,
Right.
really. But what I did love, Paul, can't lie, I loved Braun Strowman coming out and just one swift poof and knocking out Reigns. So I love it. I love that part. Not because I'm just like hating on Reigns, but I love it because now Braun Strowman kind of gets to look good again in this. He didn't have to say a lot, but I really hated, and I want to say hated, when he basically got punked out by The Undertaker. I did not like that. It made me really angry. This go around, at least it kind of heals that wound a little bit because, he pretty much takes out Reigns here.
Yeah, I was with you on that assessment. I think the last time we talked about this, Braun sort of getting almost punked out by The Undertaker. I will say this about Braun running in on Reigns here at the end of the Michaels promo. I use the term run over a whole lot, especially in my written reviews if you ever read those. This is the very definition of running somebody. Like, Roman might have sold this the best I've ever seen of anything he's ever done, because he falls halfway down the ramp, rolls right off the ramp, and lands pretty much into the guardrail, which looks all manner of painful. And these two are set to go one-on-one next week. I'm kind of into this. I still like Braun a lot. Reigns continues to sort of kind of grow on me little bits at a time, as much as I may not want to admit it, but I mean, the dude continues to... I mean, he's in the ring with a lot of great wrestlers, don't get me wrong, but he continues to deliver as far as matches go. And I like I said, he's in there with a lot of great guys, but he's bringing something to the table to get there, so...
Yeah, you're right. And, I want to say this, I used the oof or whatever sound because I didn't know what to call that. You're right. It is a run over. What Braun Strowman did. I was thinking to myself, was that really a run? Did he punch him at all? I just remember seeing it was fast. I mean, it was, hit him like a freight train. So that was solid. But yeah, and that's what makes me weary sometimes by coming out here and saying bad things about Roman Reigns, because I really honestly... And I think I said this last week, I could be all in on Roman Reigns. I don't think he's a terrible wrestler. Is he the best wrestler? No, he's not. Is he, 75% of AJ Styles? No, he's not. But he's a good wrestler. They have lots of good wrestlers on this roster. So this guy is not, any better than some of these other guys that we talk about all the time. I can't say that he's any better than Big E. I can't say he's any better than, maybe 20 other guys that they have somewhere in that mid-card range. So I think that, Roman has done a lot. He's done a lot with some big names, and we just don't like him because of the perception. If he was to turn heel, to change his persona, to be that guy we want him to be, you're going to see a lot of people loving this guy. They're going to be like, Superman, punch him again. I don't care. Do it 55 times. They're going to want to see that. Right now, we're just kind of fighting the authority at the moment. So I hate, like I said, that's why I hate coming on here and saying anything bad about Roman Reigns, but I got to condemn and criticize and judge some of the things I just don't like. But, maybe I'd change my perception if, he's a full-fledged heel.
I think a lot of people would. I mean, if you put him into the role that people have already put him in, he'll be really successful. And with Finn coming back and you having the faces that you do right now, you could maybe tease it out, or at least, pull the trigger on it at some point down the road. But we'll just have to wait and see there. For now, I want to talk about the authority, Gary. Kevin Owens comes out and has a absolutely incredible promo. The spotlight comes down on him. He knows the fans are upset with him and all these other things because he attacked Jericho, but he says he was never Jericho's friend. He was doing all these things before Jericho did it to him, and he knows that Jericho was only friends with him because he wanted to get close to Kevin Owens and that Universal title. And I loved this promo so much. I loved the spotlight thing. I loved it when Batista did it, whenever he was all about the spotlight. For Kevin Owens, I think it's a natural evolution for the character, too. He teams up with Samoa Joe to take on Chris Jericho and Sami Zayn. Jericho and Zayn do win by disqualification. because Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe refused to follow the rules and just decided to beat both guys up super bad. Joe and Zayn sort of become afterthoughts as Kevin Owens and Jericho take center stage and trade a whole bunch of blows and stuff like that. And I continue to look forward to that match very, very much. I think it's going to be incredible. Jericho later on in the evening gets a promo time to say that next week he's going to have the real Kevin Owens on the highlight reel, and adds the backstage announcer who he believes is Tom Phillips when it's not Tom Phillips to the list. So, thoughts on this match, thoughts on Kevin Owens, and thoughts on their upcoming match at WrestleMania.
The match itself was fine. I mean, I think you kind of got what you expected out of this match. Mm-hmm. You know, a decent beginning and, you know, some back and forth here that kind of made you, you know, get, you know, a little sneak peek here there about what's going to happen at WrestleMania. But the end game here wasn't to really, you know, do that pretty much. It was really just to punish both Sami Zayn and Jericho. And primarily Jericho. Let's be honest. This episode was really featuring that feud more than it was Sami Zayn and Joe. Mm-hmm. Because they kind of did that last week. So this is kind of the intern. Hey, you guys get a little bit more of this, you know, the shine here. So I think that, you know, the point was made with Jericho being, you know, laid out in the middle of the ring, pop a power bomb. You know, he's hurt, you know, and it looks like he's hurt bad. And that's a very good thing because, man, you know, especially if you love Jericho, which a lot of fans do, that they love the whole list thing and everything that Jericho does. You know, you're kind of like, oh, man, you know, they just need to go out there and find a way to beat Owens. Got to find a way to get Joe out of this equation. So the match was fine. I think they did exactly what they needed to do to get us, you know, feeling like we feel about Kevin Owens in both, you know, him and Joe. Kevin Owens is back to that guy that if you watched him in NXT, and maybe even you want to go back to his Ring of Honor days, he's back to that guy, right? Mm-hmm. He's back to that. This is all about me. This is everything, you know, that I believe, that I know, but everyone else is against me. You guys just have not recognized who I am and how great I am. So I'm going to go out and show you. And so that's what I love about Kevin Owens. This whole spotlight thing, Paul, you hit the nail on the head. This worked for guys in the past. This works perfect for Kevin Owens because this guy, I mean, he is the definition of being a smart aleck, of being that guy that is going to come out and just spit it in your face, even if you don't want to hear it, you don't like it. He's going to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I love this. I really can't get too far into it because, I mean, I would just be repeating everything I've said for however long I've said it about him. But the Jericho thing, I do want to talk about that because you just mentioned it. You know, as much as we want to, you know, see Jericho as this, you know, oh, man, he's a baby face now and he's going to be, you know, fan favorite, which he is. And he did a few of the fan favorite things here, right? I mean, he had to get the shtick in. You know, he had to get the list of Jericho. He had to do the it, right? He did all that. So you got all that. People pop for it. They love it. But you still get that Jericho who can still be a jerk, right? You know, using the whole thing, calling the guy Tom Phillips. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the actual guy's name.
I couldn't remember his name either. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not being mean, but he's really not a guy we see a lot. But yeah, that's the whole point is that, you know, Jericho's getting it across that, you know, he is a fan favorite without being in your face that he's a fan favorite, right? Mm-hmm. He can still be a jerk. He's Jericho. That's who Jericho is at times. And he's always been like that. So it's fun. It's good. It keeps the fans excited about Chris Jericho, and they want to see him do great things. So I think, Paul, as you were leading to and kind of going through all this, they did a good job of getting us further along, and we're not far away from that big match between Kevin Owens and Jericho, but they're doing a great job of building it. They're doing a great job of getting you to that next Raw and getting you to that next time you want to see them. You want to see what they're going to do. So I think, for me personally, this is something that they're doing really well.
Yeah, I think this feud is your primary reason to watch Raw right now. It's so I mean, it not only does it have so much history behind it from how long they were friends and really running the show last year, but like Kevin Owens, I think just really getting a chance to step out and be that guy, like you said, that we've all known from NXT or Ring of Honor or Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or wherever your experience with him before this was, or if you're experiencing it for the first time. Like, he's really getting a chance to be that heel that people knew he could be, or finally getting a chance to step out and do everything on his own and giving people new to him a chance to really hate him and be super vindictive. Because everybody loves Jericho. I mean, Jericho at this point is a caricature of every single gimmick he's ever had in the past at this point. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so great. Not only is he playing everything people are familiar with, but it's almost over the top and outlandish to the point that you just can't help but love it. And I think that's really what they've done well with this. So.
But you just pointed out, Chris Jericho is a one-man show, right? From he's had so many different gimmicks, but he's still the same Chris Jericho. So he's his own circus, and I love it. I love everything about it. The one thing I do want to point out, and I guess I should have pointed out when I was talking about Kevin Owens, but you know why I like Kevin Owens in a way, and why I like even though he is a heel, the way he talks. Because I think all of us have got that guy in our lives, or we've had that guy in our life before that acts like Kevin Owens, or that carries himself like Kevin Owens. I swear, I've sat across a guy like that at a Arby's or a Burger King before, and hung out with him. We're having a good time, but he's got something bad to say about something, and he's going to tell you all these different things about it. And why what he was doing is great, but what everybody else is doing is ignorant. And maybe I'm not coming across or saying this the right way. I just think all of us probably have had a guy like Kevin Owens in our lives. I don't know. It seems like I know this guy. It's weird to me.
I mean, I think everybody at some point in their life has had a crossing with somebody who thought that they were better than you, and simply is hanging out with you just to show off how great he is. But I mean, my favorite thing I think about Kevin Owens right now is that he does what heels are supposed to do so effectively, and that is spin everything that has happened to him or happening to people he is involved in a feud with or whatever, to make it come about to his way of thinking and present it that way. So much, Jericho was going to do this to me anyways. I just did it first. That's why you guys hate me. It's no big deal. I'm still the same guy, blah, blah, blah. Like, that is heel greatness 101 at work right there.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of healing it up, let's turn to the ladies. Earlier on in the evening, Sasha Banks took on Dana Brooke. There's a video that they show from .com where Charlotte told Brooke that she needed her to take Banks out, and all these other things. Really, I mean, we've been in this situation before. Sometime last year, whenever it looked like they were going to turn Dana, and then they didn't. They do that here, though, because after the match, Charlotte gets in the ring, tells Brooke she's pretty much a failure, she's not going to ride her coattails to WrestleMania, and she's pretty much done with her. So Dana has seemingly had enough and launches this very spirited attack on her that I bought into, especially with how much she tried to grab her after Charlotte was trying to make the getaway. I thought that was fine. It's hard. I think a lot of people are going to struggle to care just because of all the teases they've done with it and not paid off on it. So that they could have an uphill battle with Dana Brooke there. Later on in the evening, Nia Jax runs into Mick Foley and Stephanie and says, I've beaten Sasha and she's getting a title shot. Why am I not getting a title shot? So Stephanie, knowing that Mick Foley is having all these issues that we've already talked about, says, you know what, Nia, you can have a match with Bayley. You have a chance to go out there and spotlight yourself and really show off what you can do. And so she has the match with Bayley. It's largely a little bit lethargic, in my opinion. It's just sort of going through the motions. Nia Jax gets DQ'd for pretty much the same reason Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens did, and that's for pretty much not paying attention to the referee and just continuing to beat the bejesus out of Bayley. And she beats her down again post-match. Nia didn't win necessarily, but she does leave a strong impression that I can beat the shit out of Bayley pretty much whatever I want.
Yeah, and I appreciate this because, see, last week I was sitting there having my concerns and my worries about Nia Jax. I really was, because we were focused on the three, right? We were focused on Charlotte, we were focused on Bayley and Sasha Banks. Where's Nia? Why isn't she a part of this? And I love that they pointed out that Nia has beaten down Sasha Banks more than once. Why isn't she in this picture of the title? Let's think about that. And I had my fears they were going to leave her out, and they're not. It looks like this is going back to that fatal four-way, and I appreciate that because she definitely deserves to be in this discussion. I think it makes the match better. So, I'm sold on this, especially when I heard that she was going to face off against Bayley. You knew things were going to end up bad somehow, some way. And I was really fearful that they were honestly going to have Nia win clean. I really was worried about that in a way. But in a way I wasn't, because I wanted her to win. Well, they did the right thing. They do what they're going to do, just like Paul just pointed out. Just DQ doesn't make either girl look awful. Bayley, of course, gets left lying, which needed to happen for Nia to look good. But she also didn't take the loss. So, you got to give her that. She lost because Nia basically cheated in a way. So this goes on, and I think this is solid. Like you said, not the best match in the world, but that wasn't the reason for it.
Right.
This was never meant to be a 3, 4, 5-star match. It was meant to get a point across. Now the other one I think is interesting with Charlotte and Dana Brooke, and Dana loses against Sasha Banks. We expect that. Once again, nothing out of the ordinary. But what's important here is the fact that this feud between Charlotte and Dana sparks. I don't know where this is going. Now, the reason I say that is because we already have a fatal four-way set up. They're not going to put Dana Brooke involved in that. Mm-hmm. So, is this just a distraction for Charlotte? Is this something they're going to get cleaned up in the next 2 weeks? Which, that's awful to have to do that in 2 weeks and then focus on WrestleMania. So I'm really intrigued, Paul, and I don't know where you think this is going. I don't know if I know where it's going with Dana Brooke. Are they going to put her on the shelf until after WrestleMania? Is she going to be involved in WrestleMania? Why did they do this now? That's my biggest question.
That is a great question. I don't have a terrific answer for it other than to say that it's going to be something that they can continue to touch on past WrestleMania if they wish to do so. Because I'm assuming they're going to think once they do this four-way, which you brought up that we were, I think at points I might have been a little worried that Nia wasn't getting involved, but I think they've done this as naturally as they could where they sort of spread it out to keep something at least going week to week. Even though I'm still not a giant fan of the way they booked Bayley, the way they went about doing this with Nia makes the most sense, especially this close to Mania. You can't start having Bayley look so strong when the deck has been stacked against her. So they continue to do all that. I think when it looks to Dana and you have Emma coming back in, I don't know if they're going to revisit that pairing or what, but I think they're getting ready to expand outwards again as far as their focus goes. Because we talked about this very often as far as what happens on the Raw division of women here, is that they started very narrowly on Sasha and Charlotte, and now they've branched off to involve Bayley and Nia. And maybe the next step in that process of getting the next couple of ladies over is working in Dana and Emma into this constantly bubbling cauldron of percolating circular feuds that keep going around the circle and seem like they're never going to end. To that degree, I don't know if it's going to be overly successful. I think Bayley has gotten by mostly on the good feelings from NXT and not so much really on what she's done on the main roster so far. I think they've done a better job with Nia just because she does look like a destructive force in the division, and that's really all I think they want her to be. And if we're going to expand outwards to Dana and Emma, I don't have a real worry for unless they, the bad booking gene shows up again for her. But Dana, I still don't think I think she might have regressed since coming to the main roster. I don't have that same feeling of I've seen her improve, I've seen her continue to grow as a character, all these other things that I loved about watching her on NXT, because she was getting better before they called her up, and that seems to have halted.
Yeah, and we haven't seen her on a lot of TV. Of course, I think that also has to do with the outside things. I think she did the Arnold Classic and things like that, so that kind of took her away from TV, and that's fine. But maybe they're going to get a refocus for her. I don't know. I do agree with you. I think she, Dana Brooke has regressed a little bit here, and Emma, they don't know when they're actually going to get her on TV ever. I mean, it's always a little video package saying coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know. You never know when she's going to be a part of this roster. You never know if you're supposed to hate her, like her, what you're supposed to think about her. So, I just think that those two are definitely question marks. But you want both of them. I personally want both of them to succeed, right? I think that they have something to offer this roster, but I don't know. I have my worries because it seems right now they're willing to kind of slowly do anything with them, and that doesn't help. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we will have to wait and see. They've continued to stay gung ho about dedicating the time to building the women, though. So I can't say I'm too afraid. It's just we have seen some poor booking choices, especially here on the Raw side. SmackDown hasn't been completely immune to that, but I would say I think they've done a better job overall. So we'll just have to wait and see there. Something I think they've totally dropped the ball with is the tag team division here. Gallus and Anderson get a promo pretty much stating that if nobody's going to respect them, they're going to just reach out and take it. It's not a great promo by any stretch of the imagination. Enzo and Cass go 2-on-2 with Cesaro and Sheamus to determine the number one contenders for WrestleMania. They both, the match goes to a no contest, because Gallus and Anderson make good on the promise and attack both. Later on, backstage, Mick Foley says, I bet you guys think you're pretty funny doing this and thinking that now you don't have a match, but seeing as you guys have apparently never watched wrestling at all in the past 20 years, you know that this ends in a triple threat, right? And they didn't know that. So, Gallus and Anderson really should probably watch more wrestling, I feel like.
Yeah, you're right. That's what, it does usually go down, right? So, but, as much as I like Gallows and Anderson, and trust me, I do, I think, honestly, this goes back to Paul's point about Bayley. I love Gallows and Anderson from what they used to be, and not so much what they are here. I think if you're a fan of WWE and you haven't seen these guys, you could probably care barely anything for these two guys because they haven't shown you anything.
Yeah.
I really haven't. And heck, Paul, I can't think of a match that they've had that even equaled what we've seen from NXT's DIY or anybody else. These guys have not been put in place to be really all that successful. And you can give them the belts, but those belts don't really mean a lot because this division blows. They got great talent. The talent here it's there. But the booking decisions, the way they're handling this tag team division, it completely sucks. And it's boring, and it doesn't get you excited. This triple threat's going to happen. And you know how much I really care about it? I'd be okay with being on the pre-show. I just don't care. I want to. I do. And I love the fact that Gallows and Anderson are wearing gold that's got WWE on the label. Outside of that, though, I'm just like, blah. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Enzo and Kaz are trying to do their best to entertain you. They are doing it to a certain point. But even there, again, to be a little bit of the same old shtick, and that can't sell me on this division. Sheamus and Cesaro, I love Cesaro. I'm kind of ho-hum on Sheamus. I even right now could care less what Cesaro's doing, and that's terrible because I used to love this guy. I wanted to see him week in and week out on Raw. So hopefully this gets better, Paul. Right now, my love of it has not grown. They didn't do anything here on Raw that excited me really all at all.
Yeah, essentially all they did was make a match for Mania, right? The triple threat. Cesaro and Sheamus almost blew up last week, and now they seemingly are simpatico, so I hope that gets retouched on in the coming weeks. Enzo and Cass, to be fair, I enjoyed their promo they cut before the match. I thought this was some of Cass's better work as far as mic work went. And Enzo had, of course, they're making coffee mugs now with a cup of haters on it. So he gave one to Cesaro and Sheamus, seeing as they had coffee spilled on them last week, of course. So hats off to you, Enzo, on that one. But I'm with you. I mean, this is a largely lifeless division. Without the New Day at the helm, seemingly making everybody care. And even they've suffered away from the division. So I just... There's not a lot to get invested in. They really need to freshen this division up because it's same 3 teams now, and that's not good. It's not good at all. I want to end on a good note talking about the Cruiserweights. So let's get through this other thing with the New Day, who have their own talk show now, New Day Talks, which they have the Big Show on to have them talk about the Jetsons thing. The big thing here, Big Show reveals that he's going to be in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, so the match with Shaq is seemingly officially now is off, which is kind of a bummer. I was kind of looking forward to seeing that, but Titus O'Neil shows up and says, "Hey man, I should have been the lead for the Jetsons movie, not you. It's as bad as you think it is, and as bad as I made it sound." They have a match. It lasts nary 2 minutes. Big Show murders Titus with 3 choke slams. Largely a waste of time, in my opinion. But the New Day, I thought they were a bit more entertaining in this role, to be honest with you.
I just get out of the way. The Big Show squashing Titus O'Neil. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this New Day segment, it is a little bit better. I think that this not really new, whatever, but this format does work better than them just coming out talking about ice cream. Sure, they kind of put it in there. Sure, they kind of make the jokes, but it's not all about that. And, these 3 guys are just kind of fun. That's about it right now. And I like this better than some of the other stuff that they've done, but still, this is not something I would say blew me out of the water. It's not something that I could say I sat there and laughed the entire time. It was entertaining, and what we've got, though, compared to this, has been awful. So I don't know if it's a good measuring stick or not. But yeah, still, I want to see better stuff. I know they got it in them, but this is not bad. But just saying, I think they got better stuff.
Yeah, I like this better than what we had been getting of them just coming out randomly. So. At least this somewhat had a purpose, even though largely it was something I don't think a lot of people cared about.
Yeah. Did they make you want to watch that Jetsons movie, by the way? I mean, that was their whole goal there, is to get you to watch the Jetsons movie.
The trailers that they've shown for that didn't really get me invested. I was never a large Jetsons fan, though. Like, I watched the show when I was younger, reruns on Cartoon Network, but it was never, like, my favorite thing,
Yeah. I really enjoyed the Jetsons back in the day, but seeing the trailer made me say no thanks. Anyway.
Yeah. It's not like I went out of my way to watch the Scooby-Doo stuff. I was a big fan of Scooby-Doo when I was younger, but...
Yeah.
So the Cruiserweights. They let you know that tomorrow on 205 Live, they're going to have another 5-way match to declare a number 1 contender to face Neville at WrestleMania. Most of your usual suspects are in there: Austin Aries, T.J. Perkins, Akira Tozawa, Brian Kendrick, and I believe Tony Nese. They have a tag match to sort of keep the issues in front of you with Tozawa and Kendrick. TJP and Tony Nese kind of have a little thing going, I guess, sort of, not really. I liked this match a lot. I actually thought it had a lot of life to it. I thought Tozawa and Perkins actually worked pretty well together, and Nese getting, I think, another big win to sort of at least make him feel like he's going to matter going into tomorrow is a nice little thing to do. But yeah, this was... I really enjoyed this tag match overall.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. And, I think that they did what they were wanting to do there, and that was kind of get across the message of Brian Kendrick and Tozawa, and, they're a big thing. And, this is an interesting feud on 205 Live, and it is. They did a good job of that. And you finally get your little taste of Brian Kendrick at Tozawa too. Mm-hmm. So that kind of helps you, and that kind of gives you a little bit of, oh man, I finally get to see these two guys, get together and fight. And Perkins and Nese are kind of in the backdrop here. But once again, you just pointed out, Paul, I love the fact that Tony Nese is getting love. And I mean that because of the fact that this guy, I said it when we talked 205 Live last week, I think he's going to be a future, cruiserweight champion. I think he really will be. So I'm loving that he's getting a little bit of props here and getting a victory, even if it wasn't, anything giant. It was a roll-up, but still, he's getting wins, right? Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that. So I think that, good match. You get across the messages you want to get out of this, and I think they did a good job of that. So I'm happy with it. Overall, it gives you a reason to want to watch 205 Live. And I felt coming out of this, I want to watch 205 Live.
Yeah, I agree with you. They continue to do well on these. The flip side of this, Austin Aries has a match with Arya Daivari, who he pretty much schools in about 4 minutes or so. His finisher now is the rolling elbow. Which I tell you what, looked hella brutal, especially after that head drop back suplex thing that he did on him. I kind of enjoyed Aries. I think the crowd got into him. By the end of it, the same with Tozawa too. That Ha thing is getting over pretty quick. But yeah, I thought this was all really good stuff.
Yeah, it was, and you mentioned the fact that we have. The greatest man that ever lived, right? The guy that, we haven't had a chance to see a whole lot until recently. We get to see, that match and, just everything goes Austin Aries' way. And that's the way it needs to be because Austin Aries is perceiving himself to be just as good as Neville, the guy that really could honestly be your Cruiserweight champion right now. So I think he's doing a good job of that. Of course, he's got to pretty much kind of squash Daivari in a way. I appreciated that they did give us that, feel of Austin Aries is important. This is why he's important. So the Cruiserweights look good on this episode. I'm fairly happy with it. I think that they give you a reason to want to watch that show on, Tuesday nights and get involved in what they're doing. So overall, it's really positive on that front. And I want to say this too, if maybe there's any mint companies or any bubblegum or chewing gum companies out there and you want someone to do a commercial with, I think Tozawa's perfect. Because I could imagine him walking around, a store or a mall or some public place going, and they're like, oh, this smells delicious. You must be chewing, extreme bubblegum or whatever mint, I just would love that. I'm sorry. I'm picturing that commercial right now, right? Just think about that.
I'm trying to, and it works too perfectly.
Oh, honey, did you smell his breath? It was wonderful.
You think he's chewing that double bubble?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there. Oh, man. I love it, though. It's one of the best things, right? He's getting over with something that's just a noise, and it's just, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, he gets to wrestle, I think, differently than a lot of the other people, too, which helps out a lot, too. But I think we've talked enough about this episode of Raw. Gary, what do you think about it overall? What's your rating? How sad are we going to be?
You know what? I mean, we got in depth with a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to rehash everything. As bad as some of this felt, and as much of a clip show as this was, I'm not going to completely trash it. I am maybe way overdue this compared to Paul. I will give this a 6 out of 10 for the reason they finished the show out strong. They gave me something at the end of the show that was really meaningful. There were some good moments we moved on and some feuds were positive. There was a lot of bad, though, that definitely didn't give it an average. I kind of say 7's pretty an average to okay, and then 8, 9, 10 is good Raws. This was not a good Raw, but it wasn't a terrible Raw where I felt like I walked out not learning anything.
If you're looking for a show to watch some great wrestling on this week, this ain't it. The Cruiserweights are the best, and even then, it's their usual fare. which is still, they're pretty consistent on delivering at least above average matches. And they're not always, super good or anything like that, but they're fine matches. Everything else is a bit of a wash after that. It usually meant to progress angles or stuff like that. I think there's some solid promo work on this show, though. Kevin Owens, Paul Heyman, the women, I think to a certain degree, I missed that backstage segment with Sasha and Bayley where you kind of get some more teasing out of that feud that they're going to go with, I think, post-WrestleMania. So you have some good stuff there. The ending stuff with Triple H and Seth Rollins was also quite good. I don't know about 6. I think I'm in that ballpark, though. 5, 5.5, somewhere in that area. It's not a great Raw by any means, but there's some good promo work to go check out on this show. Not the best Raws. Hopefully next week is much more entertaining, or at least gives us some good wrestling. That helps 3 hours go by so much faster.
Definitely, and just think about this, WB. You've set everything up pretty much. Now you could just give us some good matches. We kind of know the story now. You did it on this episode. Thank you for doing that. Now let's have some awesome matches. But yeah, and we'll be definitely back next week for our next Raw review. You don't want to miss that. And trust me, you don't want to miss any of the other content we have. So hey, how do you find it? Go to W2Mnet.com. That's the place where you can just go do one click, go find all our different podcasts. And of course, you can find all the Wrestling to the Max stuff right there. And if you're using iTunes or any other place like, Spreaker or maybe even Stitcher, just make sure you go and check us out at Wrestling to the Max. You can go subscribe and you'll get all of our shows. If you want more great content than just us, though, go to the W2M Network, subscribe there, and trust me, you will get just a huge amount of great content. So you don't want to miss any of the great stuff we have to offer. But yeah, for myself and for Paul, we hope you have a great week. We will catch you for Wrestling to the Max's regular episode, and that'll be episode 238, part 1, and that'll be airing on Tuesday night. Of course, that'll also be available Wednesday morning on the download, and then also part 2 will be available Friday morning on the download for you guys, as well as don't forget the SmackDown Live and 205 Live reviews tomorrow night. Anyway, till next time, we will see you guys down the road.
Have a good one, folks.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.